Need a quick dinner recipe that the whole family will love? I've got you covered. This easy Mongolian pork recipe is full of Asian flavors and can be on the table in 20 minutes. Serve it over rice with a side of steamed broccoli and you have a wholesome meal in no time flat. I'm Christina from It Is a Keeper, and I share tried and true recipes that anyone can make. Like this Mongolian pork, it takes no time at all to make, and you can even prep some of the steps ahead of time if you want to speed things up even more. Okay, so the first thing we need to do to make our Mongolian pork is we need to prep our pork. So here I have a pork tenderloin. They usually come 2 to a pack. This recipe just uses 1, so take the other one, toss it in the freezer for next time, or prep it now and then toss it in the freezer for next time and label it. So I'm gonna take this pork tenderloin and we are going to cut it into 1/2-inch pieces. So the easiest way I like to do this is to cut it right down the center. Now this one doesn't have much fat on it, but if you wanted to trim off any extra fat, go ahead and do that. And then while I have this in half, I am going to, this is the thinner part, I'm gonna cut that off, but this thicker part I'm gonna cut in half again. And then crosswise for our 1/2-inch pieces. Now, a trick to keep your cutting board from twisting around on you, place a damp paper towel under it. Clearly, I did not do that. You want them all cut about the same size and thickness so that you can, they all cook the same. Okay, and this last half. I like this recipe with pork tenderloin because it is so tender. And it cooks up in no time because it's nice and thin. We're cutting it into nice thin pieces. So the next thing we're gonna do is take our bag holder. I just love this contraption. And you attach your zip top bag to these little clips right here. Look at that. And it holds our bag open while we work in it. We're gonna take our pieces of pork, put them into the bag, and then we're going to add cornstarch. So we'll pour that right in there. This makes it so much easier to coat the pork rather than just dredging it in cornstarch. So we'll zip that up. I'm gonna get all that extra air out. And we're just going to toss the pork until it's completely coated in the cornstarch. So what this cornstarch is gonna do is it's going to make our pork a little extra tender because it's gonna protect it from the heat while it's cooking in the pan. So we're gonna use a slotted spoon here and remove the pork pieces from the bag. I'm just placing them on the same plate. We wanna avoid any of that extra cornstarch. The other purpose the cornstarch serves is it's going to help thicken our sauce. Okay, our pork is prepped and set aside. The next thing we're gonna do is prep some of our flavor parts. I have here about four or five, I'm gonna call it 4 because this little one doesn't count in my book. 4 cloves of garlic. And we're just going to mince this up. Now you can easily use a garlic press for this, and I will share the link to my favorite one in the show notes below. I'm just using my knife. You really don't have to be particular about a super fine mince. Just get it nice and chopped up. Alrighty. I'm gonna push this aside. We'll use that in a moment. Next up, we have ginger. So you wanna use the fresh ginger in this recipe. You don't wanna use the grated, the ginger spice, the dry ginger. You wanna use fresh ginger. And the easiest way to peel it is with a spoon. So you're just gonna take your spoon and drag it along the flesh, and it pulls that skin off perfectly. Okay, so I'm not gonna use this whole knob of ginger. I'm going to use just a little bit, and I'll just take this peel and just set it off to the side. Now, the easiest way to mince ginger is with a rasp. So you just take that rasp and grate it. It's very fibrous, so if you tried to chop it up, you're still gonna get those fibers. Like you can kind of see them poking out here. So the rasp is really the easiest way to grate this. The good thing about fresh ginger is we still have this left. Now you can toss it if you want to, or you can take it, wrap it in a zip top bag, toss it in the freezer and use it later. You can grate it frozen. In fact, sometimes it's easier to grate when it's frozen. But I always have random knobs of half-used ginger in my freezer. It's just a great way to store it. Well, next up is our vegetables. We're going to prep some green onions. So we're just going to use the green parts of our onions here. And I like to cut them on a bias because it looks prettier. Now that our vegetables are done, we are going to go ahead and start cooking. But I like to get this all done ahead of time because when you start cooking, things start to move kind of quickly. Okay, so I have my skillet here. I'm just going to add some canola oil and let that get nice and hot. Okay, I see that the oil is shimmering. We're going to add our coated pork. Now the key here is to get it all into a single layer. You don't want to overcrowd the pan because then your pork will just steam. We want that cornstarch to crisp up nicely. So if you have to do it in multiple batches, take the time and do it in the multiple batches. It's a quick recipe, it doesn't take that long. All right, so this pork is almost done. I just keep flipping it around. All right, we're gonna check our pork. I'm gonna check one of the bigger pieces because then I'll know the smaller ones are done. We're looking for an internal temperature of 140. We are just about there. Perfect. Okay, so the pork is removed to a plate. We're all set to go. We're going to get started on our sauce. We're gonna take our garlic, add that to the skillet, and we're gonna add our ginger. Now this only needs a couple of seconds, just until you start to smell it. No more than like 30 seconds. We don't want it to brown. We just want to get that flavor coming out. Okay, then we're going to add our soy sauce and some brown sugar. Now, if you have dark brown sugar, that's preferred. I didn't, so I'm using light brown. It's perfectly fine. And some water. And we just want to stir that around until the brown sugar has dissolved. Okay, next up, the pork goes back into the pan. Get all those juices in there too that have accumulated on the plate. Make sure everybody's in a single layer here. And I'm gonna add those green onions in. All right, let me give those a stir. Get everything mixed together. And we're gonna let this simmer here for about 3 minutes or so. So as this cooks, the cornstarch on the pork will start to thicken that sauce. I'm just giving everything a toss about halfway through the cooking time, just to make sure it's all fully coated. Okay, so our pork is done. I'm just going to add some ground black pepper. I'm just gonna stir that pepper around. Oh, and that sauce thickened up so nice. Okay, let's serve this up. So here I have a plate of steamed rice, and we will just top it with bits of pork. And then I want to get that sauce drizzled all over the rice. Now, if you want, you could always double up on the sauce ingredients to make more. Just remember though, you'll have to add a little bit of a cornstarch slurry if you do that to thicken it up. Okay, so we'll add some of these sesame seeds to the top, and then I'll sprinkle on a little bit of chopped green onions just for some garnish. All right, I'm going in. Here's a nice little piece. Let me get it with some rice. The pork is nice and crispy, and that sauce is a little sweet, a little salty, and a little garlicky. It is absolute perfection. And you saw, this wasn't that hard to make at all. Dinner will be on the table super quick. This Mongolian pork is definitely a keeper. It's quick, easy, and flavor packed. So what's your go-to quick dinner idea? Leave me a note in the comments below. If you like the flavors of this recipe, you will love my Korean pork chops. Make sure you check that recipe out. Thanks for joining me today. You can find the full printable recipe in the video description below. I'll see you next time. Bye.